How can the United States remain influential in Latin America amidst rising Chinese investment and greater integration amongst UNISAR member nations?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question.
When American kids grow up, they dream of going to college or getting a good job. However, in Mexico, jail might not be so bad. The BBC in September of last year that an American search went through Mexican prisons. They found plasma screen TVs, pet peacocks, and even prostitutes waiting for the inmates. And although these Mexican prisons might resemble the Jersey Shore TOC house, it's clear that this is the only way that the United States is still having influence in Latin America. The Council on Foreign Relations explained on the 1st of March in 2012 that increasingly, because of the policies the United States have taken, we are losing our influence within Latin America. Because of rising Chinese investment, these countries have been less likely to depend on America as a whole. Furthermore, the UNISAR member nations, including countries like Chile, Bolivia, and Peru, have begun to further integrate, again, taking away from the influence which the United States once had in the region. Because of this, we must ask ourselves today's question: how can the United States remain influential in Latin America amidst rising Chinese investment and greater integration of UNISAR member nations? And the answer is the United States must focus on the unique benefits it can bring to the region. And we can see this in 3 specific ways. First, we have to look at the security interests the United States can provide. Second, we have to look at the energy benefits it can bring. And third, we have to look to the long-term trade stability. One of the things that the United States has struggled with in Latin America is this idea that if they go into Latin America, they can simply walk into countries and tell them how to run their country. The Wall Street Journal explains on the 7th of February in 2012 that one of the biggest failures of the United States is assuming that by going into Latin America, their best foreign policy objective is to make everyone a democracy. And that's simply not true. The Wall Street Journal explains that increasingly one of the reasons the United States is losing its position in Latin America is because of this take charge attitude, of them deciding what the country should do as opposed to helping the country come up with its own objectives. However, the Council on Hemispheric Affairs explains in just March of this year that by switching their objectives, that in fact through the drug war, by the United States being able to provide security incentives, by instead focusing on helping the people with the problems in their own country, as opposed to telling the people what they should actually do, that the United States' involvement has actually been highly appreciative. Now, one of the unique benefits the United States has is because of its geographical position, it is in a better place than China to be able to get involved in the region and be able to successfully deal with security interests. Furthermore, as the Wall Street Journal goes on to explain, by shifting their policy towards that of security interests, rather than trying to force the people of China rather than trying to force the people in Latin America to become a democracy, this will in fact bring influence back into the region. The United States is in a unique place here because within the region, many UNISAR states struggle with the same problem. So greater integration is also not going to help these security interests. Uniquely, the United States, because of its geographical position, making it a better actor than China, and because it's an outside actor solving these problems, making it better than the integration of UNISAR nations, has the advantage in terms of security interests. But one of the biggest problems facing countries like Peru and Bolivia, both members of UNISAR, is pollution in their water source. The Council on Hemispheric Affairs goes on to explain on the 30th of March of 2012 that the biggest problem right now facing these countries is in fact water pollution. Now, China, which is a resource-hungry country, is going to continue to want resources. However, America, as the Wall Street Journal goes on to explain on the 27th of February 2012, is going to be more interested in providing the technologies needed to help these member nations. The Brookings Institute explains on the 18th of April in 2012 that the United States is not only the closest to these Latin American countries, but also has the technologies these countries need in order to solve their pollution problems. The United States has the unique technology, as opposed to these UNISAR member nations, which still don't. This means that the United States, again, has a unique benefit that they can capitalize on to maintain their influence within the region, because they're able to provide something that first China can't provide, and that the UNISAR nations themselves can't provide. So again, by capitalizing on a unique benefit in terms of energy, the United States can maintain its influence in the region. But the third and final thing we have to look at is that China has been emerging. However, that's not necessarily always going to be the case. Recently, for the first time in 10 years, we've seen China's growth actually slow, which is why the third thing we have to look at is stable trade, something, again, the United States can uniquely provide. The Council on Foreign Relations explains on the 17th of March in 2012 that Chinese demand isn't always going to be there. And although this seems like a unique idea, in the long term, this is actually true. The United States has been able to be a consistent trade partner in Latin America, while China has just recently emerged. And even as China now stagnates, the United States continues to be there in terms of constant trade in these Latin American countries. Within the nation, specifically looking at UNISAR, the member states of UNISAR, because of different political clashes or because of their close geographical closeness to each other, they don't get the same benefits as having the United States uniquely trade with them. So again, it's a unique benefit of the United States, which will only help keep influence within the region because the United States can uniquely provide stable and long-term trade opportunities. So that because the United States stands in a unique position of being able to have long-term and stable trade opportunities with these Latin American countries, through this we can continue having influence in the region. So when we return to today's question, how can the United States remain influential in Latin America amidst rising Chinese investment and greater integration of UNISAR member nations? The answer is clear. The United States needs to capitalize on the unique benefits it brings. More specifically, first, looking at its security interests, how by transferring its views, it can focus on because of its geographical location, how it can do something that neither China or these UNISAR nations can do. Second, by looking at its unique benefits in energy, because not only does it have the capabilities, but it has the interest to do, again, what China and other UNISAR member nations cannot. And third, because the United States stands in a unique position to be able to have this long-term and stable trade opportunities. So through the United States taking a strong stance in security, energy, and long-term trade, it seems as if they can finally get this situation off their hands.